Okay, just going to recap this week's trades. There were 6 trades, which is actually quite a bit more than usual. I'd say that about four per week is probably my average. And I did take 2 losses, so yeah, should be a good recap. One of the losses was just just an analytical error, to be honest, like just a really bad loss. And the other one was actually the best trade of the week for sure, relative to relative to my perception, my strategy. If I were to line up all of the entries um, without seeing any of the price action that occurred, after the time of entry, of course, um, I would I would say this was easily the best entry. Um, let's actually rate these right now. I think it'd just be interesting. So let's see. So I took a trade here, 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 here. So yeah, these are either just sessions that I'm logging for learning or misses, stuff like that. So yeah, let's go ahead and rate these. This is the law. Actually, let's go worst trade to best trade. So this entry was kind of just the result of a lack of analysis. I just kind of opened the charts, saw like a generally familiar situation, and kind of just said, okay, yep, I'm gonna buy on these lows. Instead of actually looking at the structure objectively and coming to the consensus that the structure just really wasn't in the context that I thought it was. Like I kind of threw it into a preset before actually analyzing it, and I just went with that preset and lost. And also kind of just shit low time frame. We're moving really structurally here, so within this low time frame context, I'd typically be waiting for a like decisive type 3 and then a pullback and then a disproportionate reaction within there. And I just kind of entered off of a volume shift alone, out of an unfavorable, like relatively unfavorable higher time frame area. So yeah, a little bit annoying. I kind of have a general idea of what was going on, psychologically and emotionally at the time of this entry, and it's a pattern that I've recognized. It's just hard to it's hard to it's hard to not allow it to seep through, into your trading unless maybe you're tracking emotional state, which I probably should be. I used to. I don't anymore, but um, just super similar emotional state to. Let me find it. Actually, remarkably similar emotional state to, I believe it was. So yeah, this was an entry from November 26th, and I particularly remember that very similar occurrences were happening just a couple of hours before the trade. And yeah, it's an emotional state that I get into that really hampers my execution. Now, I won't get into the specifics, but it just has to do with being in a really good mood, having a lot of dopamine in your system, and it just makes you more susceptible to, um, shutting off your analytical side and just kind of jumping into a trade. It puts you in a sense of cognitive ease where you aren't really perceiving threats. You aren't being as analytical as you should be, and so you just kind of, or at least for me, I just kind of glaze over my analysis, and sometimes we'll end up jumping into something impulsively. So yeah, it's definitely something I'm aware of. I just need to do better at not jumping into trades when I am in that emotional state, because it's not that I don't recognize that I'm in it. It's just hard to trust that it will actually have an effect on how I make decisions, which I've seen like multiple times now that it does. Not just this particular example and not just the most recent trade, but yeah, it's something I noticed, and that's the worst trade of the week for sure. Second worst trade was actually this win. This was New York PM. It was really just a low time frame structure trade. It wasn't terrible. We had just filled a higher time frame imbalance here. Um, Middle time frame was bullish, not very overextended though, right? That's just kind of simply how we've been moving on the middle time frame. Most importantly, we did have room to move relative to how we'd been moving on the low time frame, and I got a really nice tick shift off of a low time frame extremity retest with room to move within this low time frame trend. And just given we were high up within that bearish move, had just filled that imbalance, was looking to kind of trade down into this, but it's not something that I consistently take. If this bearish move right here had have been a high time frame break to the downside, then this would have been, a decent quality setup. And that's kind of what I was playing off of actually when I took this. But yeah, it was just kind of another misanalysis. Like, yeah, it happened to work out, but I took this because I thought that we were within a break to the downside here on the higher time frame, which, like, objectively speaking, we just weren't. So yeah, I mean, I should have noticed that, and the trade happened to work out, likely because the low time frame was so favorable, but it's still not a good trade and not something that I would take again. So yeah, that's number 5 on the rankings. Number 4. Oh, okay, this won't be too hard. It was no, it wasn't this one. It was this one. So this one wasn't too bad. I just could have waited a little bit longer, low time frame wise. So structurally, this is a pretty good entry. The main learning is just that I need to be a little bit more patient and wait for more tick structure to generate in these like algorithmic New York correction phases that just like they just feel different. I don't know how else to explain that. So one direct little tactic or change that I'm going to make as a result of this data is, and this is kind of just pertaining to me. I don't really think anyone else uses the tick chart, but I'm just going to be watching super high volume algorithmic impulses on the tick 20 as opposed to watching it on the 15, just so I don't get too caught up in the noise. It'll make me less inclined to jump into something or read into every little move, because those little moves will just be absorbed and encapsulated in the tick 20 candles. So I basically won't have access to that data to make a decision off of. So yeah, I'll just be watching these sorts of pushes on the tick 20. And then once some structure does start to come in, then I'll drop to the tick 15 or the tick 10, which is, those are the two tick charts, mainly the tick 15 that I take entries off of. I'll drop to those once structure actually begins to generate for a more refined entry. So yeah, this was the initial entry just off this tick T3, but really just nothing decisive given the push we had. This was actually on the tick 20 as well, but just could have waited for more here. And then I actually tried to scale in because we were getting some really nice action off the 30-minute candle opening, wicking down. Had this really nice rejection, which is quite rare for the tick chart that you see a wicked candle like that. So I really wanted to get in. I waited for a retest of that, and we saw really strong buying pressure. I tried to enter right here, and I'm not sure whether I misclicked the box or my mouse click just didn't register, but I didn't get the entry. And then by the time I was going to re-enter, this candle had occurred, and obviously I wasn't going to enter all the way up there. So yeah, a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. Not a terrible entry. It's a few hours later. I had to go to the gym, but I think I was about to explain the structure for this trade. So yeah, middle time frame was bullish. High time frame, we were in a trending bullish range. We had this massive news push up followed by like a newsy correction. I don't know whether that was news or not actually, but yeah, middle time frame overextended against itself into an area where you could expect the bullish trending range to continue. I guess it was an hourly level as well. And yeah, we had just swept that low. So yeah, structurally, it was a solid entry. I'd take it again. I would probably just wait for a little bit more lower time frame structure to generate before taking this sort of entry, given the strength of this volume and just kind of the overall situation we were in. And shit, I just realized I'm exposing myself a little bit with these tabs, but I mean, I don't know how to talk to women. Who would have guessed? Anyway, I think we were on number 3. Yeah, I mean, guys, keep in mind this is 3 hours later, so I kind of forget where I was. Shit, I think. Or is this number 2? Oh, no. Okay, this is number 3. Yeah, number 3. Actually, we're gonna go with this for number 3. This was just like one of those New York classics where I'm looking for price to rangily retrace a large move from earlier in New York that was against overall direction. Actually, this one was kind of with overall direction because we were pretty high time frame range bound, if anything bearish actually, because we had that shift to the downside, retraced it, and then yeah, just saw this dump. So yeah, just given we were at a 4-hour level, we were within the lower portion of this high time frame structure, and we already saw some low time frame structure generating. Yeah, I was just looking for a little continuation of that. We got really nice tick behavior within here. Here was so pulled down deep within this overall low time frame move, and then saw just a really disproportionate reaction to the upside. I'd actually like to reread what I wrote about this because I don't really remember entirely. So yeah, this structurally on the middle time frame, this was very similar to the last trade. Middle time frame was overextended beyond some lows in your 4-hour level, lower portion of the high time frame range-like structure. So yeah, the reason I like this one more than the previous is mainly just because we had some structure that was generated. You could kind of expect an overall move to the downside here, given just that overall higher time frame. But we were so overextended relative to how we had been moving. We had room to move on the low time frame, and we already had structure. And of course, we just have the New York PM generalization. So yeah, I liked that one. Yeah, number 2. It's funny. The top 2 are actually, I mean, arguably they worked out the least favorably, but objectively, I still think they're the best 2 entries. So I already covered this one in the previous video. I believe. Just a nice little scalp with that overextended middle/high middle time frame into a really rich level. Now we had seen this higher time frame shift to the upside, and price was looking like it would overall continue. But just with the level and given how overextended we were, I was willing to take this, as I explained. Let's just reread this. So yeah, I mean, I was looking for buys initially. Yeah, timing was good too. So yeah, that's number 2. And number 1 is this buy, which was a loss. And yeah, there was really nothing structurally unfavorable about this entry relative to how I perceive the market, of course. I really liked it. Literally almost the exact trade that I look for. And the low time frame, if anything, it looked too good. Like, it looked too clean. Really nice. Just disproportionate tick volume shift, which is also a tick T3. Pull back within it, and then waited for another just volume mog response within that, and we just pushed bearish. Yeah, but that's the thing, is if you showed me this and all I could see was like that, and you showed me all of the other entries, I'd say this was the best entry. So not really upset about that. So yeah, the learning I'm taking from this entry is more situational than structural. The movement we were having felt really abnormal for the time of the week. Typically on Fridays, it's lower volume. We're respecting middle time frame extremities and whatnot. And when that doesn't happen, I think I just need to take a step back a little bit and be a little bit more patient. Similar to how New York PM, I'm expecting price to kind of rangely retrace the last large move. So if it's not doing that, I take a step back and just kind of chill out. So it's just kind of a situational thing. Yeah, really no structural flaw. Like, I'd take it again. The other thing that I'm kind of skeptical about is the 5-minute candle opened, and this bearish candle and this bullish candle pretty much just spawned in immediately. Like, it was just kind of all one move, really algorithmic, really smooth, like weirdly smooth, and it just looked manipulative, which I know that sounds like so stupid and delusional, but um, if I'm being honest, like, I do think that based off of that behavior, I probably could have. I mean, maybe not on this occasion, but in the future, I think I will be able to stay out of something like this. And maybe that's me being delusional, but it's happened before. This actually isn't the first time I've seen something like this happen before with the 5-minute candle. It's kind of similar to, it's one of my first videos. It's a very similar 5-minute candle behavior to this. So, oh yeah, there it is. There it is on the chart. So yeah, unfortunate. Price did end up continuing bullish eventually, but to be honest, if I'm looking at the low time frame structure here in comparison to what it looked like down here where an entry would have worked out, this objectively looks way better. Like, I don't think there's an entry in here that I would have taken. There just wasn't enough decisiveness in here. And then it's like, by the time we break this high, we're so high up within this overall bearish move. As a scalp, that's just, I mean, at least for me, not a very high probability entry. At the end, at the end of the day, scalping is guessing where price is going to go within the next couple of minutes. And if you're taking a trade right after a break of a low time frame high, but with all of this room below you, and you're also high up within that previous move, I'd never take something like that. So back in on the 5-minute candle behavior a little bit. Once again, I know it sounds like super niche and delusional, but the way these candles generated, it was all like one move. This was essentially the top wick of the 5-minute being created. I misinterpreted this as it bottom wicked, and then we got this strong push out, but it was really just kind of all one weird move. And that's not something that happens very often. Typically, when I'm taking an entry off of 5-minute candle behavior, it'll be like, let's look at this for an example and say a 5-minute candle opened here. It'll kind of push against me quite strongly, and then eventually we'll get, that snap up, but it's never this like immediate, like weird surge. So I think I can simply avoid stuff like that. I still think this was the best entry of the week for me. Middle time frame, high middle time frame range bound. We overextend out of that deep within this overall bullish move, and we're kind of high time frame range bound at this point. So slash trending bullish, and we have this massive imbalance up top that we haven't corrected. So that's what I was going off of. This is kind of like a preset market condition that I really like. So yeah, I absolutely would take, structurally speaking, I would take something like that again. I would just be a little bit careful of the situation and a little bit more careful of the 5-minute candle. But yeah, those were the trades for the week. There's that little sell that I took that I graded like, I think, worst or second worst, something like that. But yeah, hopefully I don't take 6 trades this coming week. I just think these were a little bit excessive, or at least, that there's no need for this. I likely took this because I didn't want to end the week on a loss. Like, I'm just calling it how it is. I mean, that's not really a good trade. This was solid. I don't even have the other, oh, I do have the other ones in here. This was solid as well. And then as for the premature buy in here, absolutely no need for this. As I said, this was just objectively a bad entry, just lazy analysis. So this week, really all I want to lock in on is just making sure that I'm not being lazy with my analysis, because the result of the laziness this past week was 2 objectively poor entries relative to how I perceive the market. One was a win, one was a loss, but at the end of the day, the outcome doesn't really fucking matter. I was just lazy as fuck analytically, and as a result of that, I took 2 shitty trades. But yeah, just gonna lock in this week on the analytical front.